My name is Kayla Roberts, and on my honeymoon, my best friend sent me a gift, a small black box my husband was terrified of. He told me not to open it. He begged me, but I did. And what I found inside didn't just expose a lie. It shattered everything I believed about love, loyalty, and the people I thought would never betray me. If you've ever trusted someone completely, and they made you feel like a fool for it, this story is yours too, because how it ends will leave you breathless. We had just finished breakfast on the sunlit balcony of our hotel in Santorini when the package arrived. A small box, wrapped in matte black paper, tied with a thin silver ribbon. No return address, no card, no logo. Just our names printed in perfect white script. Mr. and Mrs. Jacob Elridge. My new name. Still strange on my tongue. Even stranger to read. Jacob saw it first. I watched his jaw clench before I even asked what it was. He didn't touch it, didn't move, didn't speak. I picked it up and laughed softly. A gift? Maybe from the resort? Or a friend? He didn't laugh. He stood up too fast, his chair scraping against the stone tiles. Kayla, don't open that. My smile faltered. Why? He stepped back. Just, please. Not yet. It was the first time he'd looked at me like that. Not lovingly. Not lustfully. Fear. He looked afraid of a gift box on our honeymoon. I set it down slowly, suddenly aware of the silence around us. Even the ocean felt like it had stopped breathing. Inside that silence, I felt something else. An echo. A flicker of doubt, like a thread unraveling at the hem of a perfect dress. The box stayed on the table as we went inside. We didn't touch it all day. That night, while he was in the shower, I picked it up. It was light. Whatever was inside barely made a sound when I tilted it. I turned it over. Still no clue. No sender, no label, no hidden flap. And that's when I saw it. Just beneath the edge of the ribbon, tucked into the crease of the wrapping, a tiny square of paper. My heart skipped. I slipped it out with a fingertip and unfolded it slowly. 4 words. You deserve to know. My breath caught in my throat. I looked toward the bathroom door. Still shut. Still running water. And suddenly, the tile floor beneath me didn't feel so stable. 2 weeks earlier, I stood in the back room of my favorite bridal boutique in Boston, surrounded by ivory lace and half-empty champagne flutes. My best friend, Ava, was zipping me into my gown for the final fitting. She whistled low, then circled around to face me. Girl, if you back out now, I'm marrying him instead. I laughed, the kind of real, ugly laugh only best friends ever get from you. Ava had been in my life for over a decade. From college lectures to broken hearts, cross-country moves to last-minute brunches, she was the one constant that never wavered. She was also the one who set me up with Jacob, 3 years ago. Blind date. Told me, he's not your type, but maybe that's a good thing. She wasn't wrong. He was quiet where I was fiery, measured where I was impulsive. But he adored me, showed up for me, and I fell for the way he listened, not just to my words, but to my silences. So when he proposed at the Boston Public Garden under the willow trees where we had our first kiss, I said yes without hesitation. Ava was the first person I called. She screamed so loud I dropped the phone. She planned half the wedding, chose the flowers, fought my mother over the seating chart. She stood beside me as maid of honor, clutching my bouquet, wiping a tear during our vows. And now I couldn't stop staring at her handwriting on that card. You deserve to know. I didn't open the box that night. I placed it back where I found it and tried to breathe. Tried to convince myself it wasn't what I thought it was. But at 3:12 a.m., I woke up to find Jacob staring at the ceiling, hands folded on his chest like a man waiting for judgment. He didn't know I was awake. I watched him in silence, the moonlight casting long shadows across his face. He looked older, not like the man I married 3 days ago. Like a version of him I hadn't met before. I whispered, "Do you know who sent it?" He didn't look at me, didn't flinch, just said softly, "I hoped she wouldn't." My heart fell into my stomach. She? Still staring at the ceiling, Jacob said, "Go back to sleep, Kayla." But sleep was a door that slammed shut behind me. I was locked out. The next morning, I opened the box. Jacob wasn't there. Said he was going for a walk. I sat alone at the table, hands trembling as I untied the ribbon and peeled the paper away. Inside, a photo. One I had never seen before. It was grainy, taken at night, but clear enough. Jacob. Standing outside a building I didn't recognize. Holding a woman, not hugging, not a friendly arm around the shoulder. His hand on her lower back. Her face tilted up to his, lips almost touching. And the worst part? The timestamp in the corner. 2 weeks before our wedding. Beneath the photo was another note. One sentence. Ask him where he was the night of his bachelor party. I couldn't feel my legs anymore. I gripped the table just to keep from falling, because I knew exactly where he told me he was that night. And now, for the first time, I had a reason not to believe him. I left the box open on the table, left the photo face up. Then I waited. When Jacob returned, sunglasses on, tan lines deepening, smile forced, he saw it immediately. He stopped in the doorway like he'd hit a wall of glass. And for a moment, I wished I hadn't opened it. Wished I had lived inside the lie just a little longer. But Ava was right. I deserved to know. And now, he had to tell me everything. Because the woman in the photo wasn't just anyone. It was someone I knew. And I was going to make him say her name out loud. Before the fear behind Jacob's eyes, there was a life I built with both of them in it. My world back home in Boston was everything I had once prayed for during lonely nights in my 20s. A spacious one-bedroom apartment in Back Bay with a brick fireplace, a job I didn't hate, Sunday dinners at my mom's, and 2 people who anchored me when life got too loud. Ava and Jacob. I used to think balance was the key to happiness. That if I could keep my calendar full but my stress low, my social life busy but not chaotic, then I'd cracked the code. That's how I described my life to people. Balanced. I woke up at 6:30 every morning. Hot lemon water, 10-minute stretch. Then I'd walk to my copywriting job at a mid-sized marketing firm on Newbury Street. Ava and I would text at least 5 times before noon, TikToks, gossip, memes, or just kill me now work complaints. We had our ritual. Every Thursday night, wine and Thai takeout on my couch. Bad TV playing in the background while we analyzed our coworkers like they were chess pieces. Jacob entered the picture 3 years ago. A setup I only agreed to because Ava wouldn't shut up about it. He's stable, she'd said. Not boring, not a man-child, just rooted. You need that. I didn't even like him on the first date. He was too quiet, too observant, the kind of man who watched more than he spoke. But then he remembered the book I mentioned offhand and brought it to our second date, annotated with sticky notes. After that, I couldn't help myself. Jacob made me feel safe in a way I'd never known. Not because he was loud about his love, but because he was deliberate. He remembered what mattered to me. Showed up when I didn't even know I needed him. When my dad got sick last year, it was Jacob who came to the hospital unasked, sat next to me in silence for hours, and didn't flinch when I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. He held space. Real space. He never interrupted me, never raised his voice, never made me feel like too much. And maybe that's why I missed the signs, because sometimes quiet can be a disguise. Ava once joked that she was married to both of us, and in a weird way, it was true. She was there for every milestone. She helped me choose the couch Jacob and I now shared. She came with me to view the apartment we moved into last spring. She even helped organize his birthday last fall, a small dinner with friends at a cozy bistro, where she gave him a leather-bound journal and whispered something in his ear that made him laugh so hard he nearly choked on his wine. I remember watching them that night. The closeness, the ease, the way she slapped his arm and called him dork, the way he grinned at her like they were old friends, not just connected through me. At the time, I thought, thank God they get along. I'd dated men who were jealous of Ava, who couldn't handle our bond. But Jacob wasn't like that. Or so I thought. Looking back, I realize how much of Ava's presence I had normalized, how much I trusted her with everything. When I had to leave town for work, she watered our plants, fed our cat, even picked up Jacob's dry cleaning once. "It's nothing," she'd say. "He's practically family." And she was. She'd seen me through heartbreaks, job losses, the death of my father. We'd lived together in our 20s, danced on bar stools, cried over cheap wine, and once road-tripped from Boston to Nashville on a dare. She knew every version of me, the messy, the manic, the magic. So when she became close with Jacob, it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like harmony. I even remember teasing her. "You're the honorary third wheel." She smirked and said, "Honey, I'm the axle that keeps you both rolling." There were red flags, but they came dressed as devotion. Like how she insisted on helping me plan the proposal party Jacob threw for my birthday. She said he needed guidance. Men are hopeless with aesthetics. Or how she was always the last to leave our place after dinner. Sometimes she and Jacob would be deep in conversation when I came back from the kitchen. Politics, philosophy, some podcast she swore I'd never understand. It didn't feel wrong, just exclusive. But I brushed it off, because I believed something that would later shatter me, that people who love you can never be a threat to each other. I thought loyalty was enough to prevent betrayal. I thought my love for both of them created a barrier, one they would never dare to cross. But love doesn't protect you from secrecy. It just makes the lies harder to spot. Jacob had a calm, dependable presence. But looking back now, I realize how much control was hidden in that calm. He never yelled, but he always had the last word. He never told me what to wear, but he always complimented certain looks more than others. He never said Ava was too involved, but he was always careful to suggest boundaries when it suited him. Like when I invited Ava to join us on a weekend trip to Cape Cod last spring. "She could use a break," I'd said. Jacob smiled, nodded. "Of course, just maybe we need more time alone first." At the time, I thought it was sweet. I told Ava he wanted us to have couple space. She laughed it off and said, "Don't worry, I'm not about to honeymoon crash you." Funny now, because she would crash my honeymoon, just not in person. I used to believe I was immune to betrayal, that by curating a life full of good people, I had outsmarted chaos, that I'd filtered out the toxic ones, chosen right, done the work. But betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the ones who've seen your softest parts, the ones you never guarded yourself against, the ones who hug you tight while memorizing the places they'll one day strike. And still, even now, I can't pinpoint when the shift began. Maybe it was the night Jacob said he was working late, and Ava casually texted, "Bored, wanna grab a drink?" Or the time I noticed a strand of hair on Jacob's jacket, not mine, not Ava's, and he said it must have been from the office. Or maybe it was nothing so clear. Maybe it was just the slow erosion of trust hidden behind years of rehearsed intimacy. I see it now. The night before the wedding, Jacob was quiet. We had separate rooms. Tradition, he said. But when I FaceTimed him to say goodnight, he didn't pick up. Ava did. She was in her room, robe on, wine glass in hand. "I think he fell asleep," she smiled. And I believed her. Because why wouldn't I? If you had asked me then, standing barefoot in my bridal suite, veil spread across the bed like a promise, if I had any doubts about the man I was marrying, I would have said no. Not a single one, because the only betrayal I'd ever feared was being left, not being lied to by the two people I loved most. But as I stood there, days later, staring down at that photo on the honeymoon balcony, their faces close, their bodies too familiar, I felt something shift in my chest. A fracture. Not just in my relationship, in my reality. He didn't deny it. That was the first crack. When Jacob walked in and saw the box opened, the photo face up like a scar on our honeymoon table, he froze. But not with shock. Not with disbelief. Just stillness. like he'd been waiting for this moment. I didn't scream, didn't throw the photo at him. I just asked one question. Who is she? He blinked, a long, slow blink as if closing his eyes would buy him time. Then he said her name like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Delilah. Not Ava. Not the girl I feared, but someone I didn't even know existed. And somehow, that made it worse. Because if it had been Ava, at least I'd have a villain, a face for the betrayal. But Delilah? She was a ghost, a stranger, a name I'd never heard until it gutted my marriage. She was just... It was a mistake, he said, sitting across from me, elbows on his knees, hands threaded tight. It didn't mean anything. He sounded rehearsed, polished, like he'd run through this monologue in his head every night since it happened. It was one night, he continued, the night of my bachelor party. It got out of hand. The guys... I held up the photo. That's not the face of a man who made a mistake. That's a man who's choosing. Jacob shut his mouth. He didn't argue. And that silence, that admission, shattered me. The tears didn't come right away. Instead, my body went cold. Numb. Like I'd been yanked underwater and couldn't remember how to surface. I walked to the bathroom and shut the door. Locked it. Sat on the tile floor in my silk robe, the one with wifey embroidered in gold thread on the back. A cruel joke now. And stared at the marble wall like it held the answers. My brain wouldn't process it. Not yet. It kept looping back to our vows. The way he cupped my face as he promised forever. The way he cried when he slipped the ring on my finger. Was any of it real? Was I marrying a man? Or a lie dressed in tailored suits and soft kisses? He knocked once. Softly. Kayla, please come out. I didn't answer. Because if I opened that door, I wasn't sure what I'd do. I wasn't sure who I was anymore. The breakdown came in waves. First, rage. I tore off the ring, flung it into the sink with a metallic clatter that echoed too loud. Then I grabbed the hotel shampoo bottles and threw them one by one at the wall. Little pastel missiles that exploded like fireworks. Next came the bargaining. What if I'd noticed sooner? What if I hadn't let Ava plan so much of the wedding? What if I'd asked more questions that night he got home late? Then grief. Raw, paralyzing, breath-stealing. I curled up on the floor and cried so hard I gagged. And somewhere in the middle of it, I whispered to myself, I don't know who I am. Because I didn't. I wasn't just a woman betrayed. I was a woman who had celebrated the man who did it, who had toasted to him, woven dreams around him. And now those dreams felt like ashes in my mouth. He said he wanted to fix it, that it meant nothing, that he didn't even talk to her again, that it was the alcohol, the pressure, the stress. Kayla, I love you, he said. I married you. Doesn't that say everything? But it didn't. Not anymore. Because he didn't marry me in honesty. He married me with a secret in his back pocket, hoping I'd never find it. He said he told Ava the next day that she was the only one who knew, that she begged him to confess, that she was the one who told him I deserved the truth. And that's when it all collapsed. Because the box, the photo, it had been her. Ava had known. From the beginning. And she let me stand at that altar anyway. I called her. With shaking hands, in a hotel room that no longer felt like a honeymoon suite but a war zone. She answered on the second ring. Kayla, you knew. Silence. You knew and you let me marry him. More silence. And then quietly. I tried to tell him. I thought he would. No, you don't get to play savior now. I stood by the window, heart pounding. You smiled in my face, Ava. You helped me into my dress. You toasted to my forever. And all the while, you were carrying his secret like it was your own. Her voice cracked. I was protecting you. No, I snapped. You were protecting him. And maybe protecting herself too. That night, I didn't sleep. Jacob kept trying. He made tea. He offered to book an early flight. He said we could go to therapy, start fresh. But every word felt like a hand on a bruise. Too much, too soon, too fake. I stared at the ceiling until the sun bled into the sky. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt completely unanchored. My identity had been wrapped around this love, this man, this friendship. I was the girl who had it all, the guy, the best friend, the dream wedding. Now I was just raw, split open, suspicious of every memory I used to hold dear. I spiraled, not publicly, not yet, but inside, I was unraveling. I questioned everything. Had Jacob ever really loved me? Was Ava jealous? Was I blind? Naive? Weak? Was there something in me that caused this? Shame crept in like a fog. I hated that I still craved his touch. That when he reached for my hand the next day, some part of me wanted to hold it, just to feel normal again. That contradiction was the hardest part. To mourn someone you're still in love with. To long for comfort from the very hands that broke you. It's a sickness of the soul. A dissonance that makes you question your own sanity. He asked if we could salvage the trip. Just one day, one dinner, a sunset. Something to remember that wasn't this. I looked at him and realized he didn't want me to heal. He wanted himself to feel better, to push this betrayal into the past like a bad dream. But I wasn't done grieving. I wasn't done falling apart. So I left. I booked a separate room across the island, packed a bag, took the box and the photo with me. I didn't say goodbye. I left a note that simply said, "You broke it. I need to figure out if I can live with the pieces." That first night alone, I sat on the bed and studied the photo again. His hand on her waist, her lips tilted up. A snapshot of a man I didn't recognize. And I whispered something into the silence of the room, like a prayer. Show me who I am without them. The honeymoon ended 3 days early. Jacob flew back alone. I stayed in Santorini, not out of courage, but cowardice. Because the thought of facing my apartment, my life, my mother, was too much. I told everyone I was extending the trip for me time, a solo honeymoon, as if choosing solitude made me strong. But truth was, I didn't know who I was anymore without their reflections shaping me. The first week, I wandered the island like a ghost in sandals. I wore the same dress 2 days in a row, ate olives and stale crackers from a mini-mart, tried to write in my journal, but everything came out either numb or cruel. I cried in public twice and didn't care who saw. I went on a boat tour and stared at the water like it owed me answers. I tried to post a photo on Instagram, a scenic cliff, a sunset, but the caption stopped me. What was I supposed to say? Healing? Blessed? There was no filter for betrayal. When I returned to Boston, I didn't go home. I couldn't walk into that apartment, sleep in that bed, see that framed wedding photo in the hallway. So I crashed at my cousin Danielle's place in Southie. She had 2 toddlers, a beagle, and a husband who worked nights. There was never a moment of silence, which helped. Noise kept the grief at bay. Danielle didn't ask questions. She just hugged me, handed me a glass of wine, and said, "Say when." Ava reached out 3 times. Texted first, "I'm so sorry. Please talk to me." Then called. I declined. She left a voicemail, said she missed me, said she didn't want to be the villain, that she made a mistake, and she loved me. That what Jacob did wasn't her fault, and she had begged him to tell me. But all I heard was justification, not remorse, not honesty. I never called back. Jacob sent flowers to Danielle's house. I refused the delivery. He emailed me an apology, long, wordy, full of "I was scared" and "I didn't want to lose you." He included a picture of the journal I gave him on our first anniversary, the same one Ava had gifted him. That stung more than I expected. I tried therapy. Once. The therapist had kind eyes and too many throw pillows. She asked, "What do you want from this space?" I said, "To not hate myself." She nodded slowly, like I'd handed her something fragile. I didn't go back. Not because she was bad, but because she was right. And I wasn't ready to do the work yet. Instead, I made bad decisions. I slept with a stranger I met at a bookstore. He was kind, had soft hands, smelled like cinnamon. It meant nothing. I cried afterward. He held me while I shook and didn't ask questions. When he left, I blocked his number. Not because he did anything wrong, but because I couldn't bear to be seen that raw again. I drank too much, took a week off work and didn't tell anyone, started a private Instagram account where I posted quotes about survival, rage, and feminine fury. I rewatched our wedding video one night and punched the laptop shut when he kissed me. Then I deleted it from every device. Even the cloud. That was the first time I felt something like power. Rock bottom wasn't loud. It was subtle. A Tuesday morning in October. I was brushing my teeth and looked up, really looked, and didn't recognize myself. My face was pale, eyes hollow, shoulders slumped like I'd been carrying invisible bricks for months. I spit out the toothpaste and whispered, "This isn't me." And I meant it. Danielle made me go back to therapy. She said, "You don't have to forgive anyone. You just have to find your damn pulse again." This time, I went back, sat on that couch, told the therapist everything, from the photo to the box to the way I had built my life around them. I cried so hard I got a headache. She said something I'll never forget. What if the betrayal wasn't that they lied, but that you lost your voice while they did? I went silent. Because she was right. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped asking questions, stopped noticing the red flags, stopped trusting myself. I'd made being loved the goal, not being whole. Healing wasn't a straight line. One week I was journaling and doing yoga at sunrise. The next I was crying in the grocery store because someone said, "Congratulations," while eyeing my empty ring finger. But slowly, I started rebuilding. I went back to work, deleted old photos, painted my nails a bold color for no reason, took a solo trip to Vermont and didn't tell anyone. I started saying no to things, to people, to guilt. I read books on boundaries, started sleeping through the night, stopped checking Jacob's socials. But just when I thought I was healing, really healing, I saw them. At a farmer's market in Beacon Hill, Ava and Jacob, together, not holding hands, not touching, but walking side by side, coffee cups in hand, too close for comfort. And that's when the bottom dropped out again. My stomach turned. Not because they were together, but because they weren't hiding it anymore. They saw me. Ava's eyes widened. Jacob froze. I didn't say a word. I just turned around and walked away. It was the last time I cried over either of them. That night, I made a decision. I moved out of the apartment, gave up the security deposit, left the couch, the dishes, the memories, started over. New neighborhood, new number, new version of myself. I cut off Ava, blocked her on everything. Not out of cruelty, but clarity, because healing requires sacrifice. And mine was this, letting go of the dream that they would ever make it right. One day, after months of silence, my therapist asked, "What do you want now, Kayla?" And I said, "To trust my voice again." She smiled. That's a start. The first real change came in spring. After a brutal Boston winter full of gray skies, damp boots, and too many evenings wrapped in oversized sweaters I didn't remember buying, I opened the curtains one morning and felt something shift. Light hit my new apartment differently, like it wasn't just landing on me, but moving through me. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a broken woman trying to remember who she used to be. I felt like someone new. I'd moved into a one-bedroom in Jamaica Plain, small, sunlit, no ghosts. I painted the walls sage green and bought plants I wasn't sure I could keep alive. Started cooking again. Not for anyone else. Just for me. I rearranged the furniture every 2 weeks, not out of indecision, but because I could. It felt good to make choices without compromise. I even bought a velvet couch in a deep burnt orange, something Jacob would have hated. and every time I sat on it, I smiled like I was reclaiming territory. Career-wise, I surprised myself. I left my old job, the copywriting firm with too many deadlines and too little passion, and started freelancing full-time. At first, it was scary. The instability, the lack of coworkers, the pressure to build something from scratch. But it forced me to trust myself again. To ask, what do I actually want to write? Soon I was building a client list. Wellness brands, trauma-informed therapists, women-led startups. The kind of work that aligned with the woman I was becoming. And more than that, I launched a small passion project, a newsletter called The Quiet Comeback. It started with just 30 subscribers, mostly friends, some strangers from Instagram. Each week, I shared one personal story, one hard truth, and one small win. No fluff, no pretending, just real healing, in real time. By summer, it had over 1,000 subscribers, and women started messaging me things like, "I finally left him. This is the first time I felt understood. Thank you for not pretending to be okay." I didn't know it yet, but something powerful was building beneath the surface. Therapy helped too, but not in the way I expected. It didn't fix me. It just gave me permission not to be fixed. To live in the in-between, to let rage and peace share the same room. Some sessions I cried, others I just sat in silence. But I kept showing up. And over time, I found a rhythm, a trust in my own timing. I even started meditating, badly at first. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Until one morning, I made it to 20. And when the timer went off, I didn't rush to stand. I just sat there, breathing, alive, whole, enough. And then came Mason. I met him at a bookshop on Newberry Street. I was buying a poetry collection. He was buying coffee beans they sold by the counter. He asked me what I was reading. I told him. He asked if it was any good. I said, "Depends on how sad you're willing to be." He smiled. Not with charm, but understanding. We didn't exchange numbers that day. But 2 weeks later, I saw him again. This time he offered to buy my coffee. I told him I was a woman of independence. He said, "Then let me support your independence with caffeine." We laughed. Mason was different. Gentle, but not passive. Steady, but not controlling. He didn't try to fix me. Didn't ask about Jacob right away. He let me tell my story on my own terms. Our first date, we went for a walk along the Charles River. He asked me what I was most proud of. I said that I didn't stay broken. He nodded. That's enough. And it was. But I wasn't in love yet. I was in presence, which, after everything, felt more intimate than romance. Mason was part of my new world, but not the center of it. And for the first time, I didn't need anyone to be my home. I was building that within myself. I got stronger. I went to the gym again, not to punish my body, but to celebrate what it had carried. I ran a 10K in June, took myself to a jazz show on a Friday night in July. Even went to a wedding in August and didn't cry once, not even during the vows. I saw Ava's sister there. She looked at me with something like guilt. I looked back with something like grace. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. But the peace wasn't perfect. There were still moments, quiet ones, when I'd wake up from a dream where Jacob was holding my hand, and I'd have to remind myself not to miss it. There were nights I'd see a funny meme and go to text Ava, forgetting for a heartbeat that we don't speak anymore. Healing doesn't erase memory. It just lets it hurt less. Then in September it came. An invitation. Ava was launching something, a lifestyle brand, a women's empowerment event to be exact. Sent through mutual friends, a link, a flyer, a smiling photo of her in a white power suit under bold pink text that read, "Reclaim. A night for women to own their story." I stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't just the hypocrisy. It was the timing, the irony, the fact that this woman, who once hid the truth from me, was now selling empowerment in the form of $149 event tickets. I laughed out loud. Not bitterly. but with that kind of slow, quiet disbelief that only comes when life hands you a full circle. The twist? Her keynote speaker was Jacob, his face smaller than hers tucked on the bottom of the flyer. A quote, "Building trust after failure, how to lead with integrity." And there it was. The collision, the inevitability, the quiet hum that told me this story wasn't finished yet. I closed the flyer, sat back, and smiled to myself, because I wasn't the woman who cried on a bathroom floor anymore. I wasn't the girl who needed answers or apologies. I was something else now. And they were about to find out exactly who. I didn't plan to attend. The flyer stayed buried in my inbox for a week. I barely glanced at it after the initial shock. Ava's pastel branding, Jacob's borrowed wisdom, their glossy, curated faces tucked between the words empowerment and integrity. But it wouldn't leave me alone. Not because I wanted revenge, but because something in me needed to be seen. Not by them, but by the version of me who once begged for crumbs of honesty. I wasn't going to burn down their stage. I was going to walk into that room and let them feel the silence they'd taught me to survive. I bought a ticket under a different name, showed up at the venue in a fitted black jumpsuit, minimal makeup, and my hair pinned high, not to impress, but to own space. The room was smaller than I expected. A renovated art gallery turned into a makeshift event hall. White chairs, white walls, blush-up lighting, and overpriced mocktails. Everything screamed curated vulnerability. I slipped in during the second speaker. Sat in the back. Observed. The crowd was mostly women in their 30s and 40s. Hopeful, open-hearted, hungry for stories that mirrored their own pain. I watched them nod, take notes, wipe tears. And I remembered being them. Ava took the stage third. The applause was generous. She wore ivory, not white, but close enough to make a statement. Hair curled perfectly, lips soft pink, posture sharp. She opened with a smile. "Sometimes," she said, "we betray ourselves long before anyone else does." The crowd hummed with agreement. She told a story, not our story, but something adjacent. A friendship she'd lost because she stayed silent too long. She never named me, never mentioned Jacob, just floated vague phrases like mistakes were made and truth requires courage. I didn't flinch. I didn't need her to tell the truth anymore, because I was the truth. Sitting silently 3 rows from the back, legs crossed, heart steady. She scanned the crowd as she finished. Eyes swept once, then again, and paused. I saw it. The stutter in her smile, the shift in her gaze, the way her throat tightened as she swallowed a gasp and tried to hide it behind applause. She saw me, but I didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't flinch. I just looked at her, not with malice, but clarity. Then came Jacob. His intro was softer. He stepped onto the stage in a crisp navy suit, sleeves rolled slightly, like he was trying to seem real. He held a wireless mic and smiled sheepishly. "I'm not a coach or a guru," he said. "I'm just a man who's made mistakes. Big ones." The crowd leaned in. He talked about growth, redemption. How betrayal doesn't define you, but what you do afterward does. He said, "I hurt someone I loved very deeply, and the worst part was knowing she trusted me completely." I stared at him, my heart unmoved, because those words weren't meant for me. They were for the room, for applause, for a redemption arc he hadn't earned. He finished with a quote about truth and silence. I don't remember it. It wasn't memorable. What I remember was what came after. There was a Q&A. They opened the floor to the audience. 2 mics, 1 on each side. Hands shot up. Questions about boundaries, growth, forgiveness. Then mine. I stood slowly, walked to the mic and felt every eye follow me, including theirs. Ava shifted in her seat. Jacob tensed. I didn't smile, didn't introduce myself, didn't ask a question. I just said, calm and clear, "Do you tell them about the box?" The room went still. Jacob blinked. Ava froze. I continued, voice even. The black box with the silver ribbon. The one that showed up on my honeymoon. The one you were both terrified I'd open. A beat of silence. Someone in the crowd murmured, "Oh my God." I stepped back from the mic, didn't wait for their response. I turned, slowly, deliberately, and walked up the center aisle. The audience parted for me like water. No one stopped me. No one spoke. I could feel their eyes, their breath, their questions, and behind me I could feel them, unraveling. Not because I screamed, not because I humiliated them, but because I reminded them. I exist. Outside, the night air was crisp. I stood under a street lamp, pulse steady, breath smooth. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I wasn't broken. I was free. Ava came out 10 minutes later. She found me leaning against a railing, watching the lights blur across the city. She walked up slowly. "Kayla." I didn't look at her. "You were always better at performing," I said. She flinched. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. I finally met her gaze. And yet, it did. She looked down, voice trembling. "I thought I was protecting you." "No," I said. "You were protecting what you wanted to keep, and it wasn't me." Tears welled in her eyes. "I've changed." I nodded. "So have I." And that was it. I walked away. Didn't need closure, didn't need an apology, didn't need revenge. The confrontation wasn't about hurting them, it was about remembering me. A week after the event, I sat by the window in my apartment with a cup of tea, the evening sun falling soft across my hardwood floors, and opened a blank document on my laptop. Not for work, not for the newsletter, just for myself. I titled it, "The Letter I'll Never Send." And I wrote to them both. To Ava, "I don't hate you. I did. For a while. But hate is loud, and I've grown quiet. You taught me something. That proximity doesn't equal loyalty. That shared history isn't a shield. That sometimes the ones closest to you will mistake your softness for absence. To Jacob, you were the last person I ever wanted to question. I thought love would make you honest. I thought devotion was enough to make a man brave. But you loved me in fear, and I needed to be loved in truth. To myself, I'm proud of you. For staying, for leaving, for breaking, for rebuilding, for finally learning that silence can be strength, and walking away is its own kind of power. I closed the document. Didn't save it. Didn't need to. The words had done their work. In October, I walked the Arnold Arboretum alone. The leaves had just turned. Rich reds, golds, flame orange, a slow and steady burn. I stood at the top of Peter's Hill, the skyline small in the distance, and took a deep breath that tasted like wood smoke and clarity. There was no one holding my hand, no one waiting for me at the bottom of the hill. And for the first time in my adult life, that didn't scare me. It felt peaceful. Some nights, I still dream of the version of my life that never existed. The wedding without the lies. The best friend who never kept secrets. The husband who told the truth before it was too late. But I don't wake up crying anymore. I wake up knowing I survived it, lived through the unraveling, and came out softer, not harder. The kind of soft that doesn't collapse. It absorbs, adapts, and keeps moving. Mason stayed, but gently. We go for slow walks after dinner. We don't talk about forever. We talk about the book he's reading, the playlist I'm building, the soup I'm trying to perfect. He knows my story. He doesn't try to rewrite it. Sometimes he leaves handwritten notes in the kitchen drawer. Not love letters, just thoughts, quotes, jokes, pieces of himself that ask nothing in return. That's how I know it's safe. I don't wear rings anymore. Not even the ones I bought for myself. My fingers are bare, but my voice is not. When people ask me what I do, I say, I write about what it means to come back to yourself. That's the truth now. That's the life I've chosen. I saw Ava one more time, months later, at a bookstore. Of course. She didn't see me. She stood in the self-help aisle, thumbing through a hardback copy of Something About Boundaries. I watched her for a moment. Not with bitterness, just observation. She looked tired, tense, like a woman still convincing herself she was the hero of her story. I turned away before she noticed. There was nothing left to say. Some relationships end with fire. Ours ended with fog. And that's okay. A few days ago, I found the silver ribbon, tucked in the back of an old journal, like a relic. I almost threw it out, but instead I tied it around a bundle of dried lavender and set it on my windowsill. A reminder. Not of betrayal, but of awakening. Because sometimes, the gift you never wanted is the one that frees you.